Welcome to part 4 of our Neuro-affirming series, and I hope you're getting on really well with the books. I'm going to dedicate this part to just to maybe ask you some questions, see where you're at, just to see if you can notice this different approach. Because sometimes it's hard to tell what's neuro-affirming and what's not. And particularly with so many marketing companies, I suppose, jumping on the neurodiversity bandwagon, you'll see neurodiversity and neuro-affirming on websites and on programs where it just does not belong. And it can be hard sometimes to figure that out. So hopefully this will help you as well by going through my program to see, I suppose, what neuro-affirming is. So I've picked out a couple of things, I suppose, to discuss. So basically, we're not placing one way of communicating above any other. And that is, I suppose, pretty much the definition of a neuro-affirming approach to communication. We see all types of communication as equal. If there's a program that is saying autistic children need help to develop the skills, and the skills are kind of the neuroconformative ways of communicating, that's a red flag. But I know it can be really difficult to see those things sometimes, particularly when you're starting this journey. But you know, really, when you're seeing everything as equal, that's really, I suppose, the essence of neuro-affirming. Also, when people say things like, but we're all learning to communicate, or every child could learn these skills, that's kind of a red flag too, because sometimes it's being used to justify teaching the autistic child neuroconformative ways of communicating and not supporting their own communication, because it's like this idea that we all just need to sit still for 3 hours, or we all need to look at each other when we're speaking, or we all need to make friends. And yeah, we all would like to make friends, but the problem is sometimes we can't make friends with people who don't want to be our friends, and we need to address that. And then peer education and how the adults interact with the child, and all of that are going to determine whether that child is welcomed into a friend group or not. And that's a neuro-affirming approach, looking to the environment and educating other people around them, rather than trying to make the child, make friends with people who maybe don't want to be their friends and all that kind of stuff. And a whole lot of problems go with that. So I think just to be careful of those things. I think that's a general one that's used so often to justify teaching autistic children social skills that are predetermined by somebody else that no one actually really follows anyway. This idea that we all need to do the thing. And when we say things like we all need to, well, then that's not true, is it? Because we have different people in the world and we don't all do the same things. And some people can't, and some people, have a different way of doing it. And we, these blanket statements that we all need to know these things. While it sounds absolutely lovely and, can be kind of confusing, because you're like, yeah, that's true. And it can take a while to work through it. It took me a while to work through it, actually. So second thing is, I suppose, to note that we're providing space for the child to explore their own communication. A lot of the work we're doing here is looking at how the child communicates, how they understand their way of communicating, and that's so important. And that's neuro-affirming, because it's their way of communicating. You're trying to learn more about it, they're trying to learn more about it, and discovering, things about themselves, and we're not telling them everything they're doing is wrong. So that's a huge, huge difference. We're also learning from the child, and that's the child-centered approach. We're asking the child questions, we're seeing where they're at, we're seeing what solutions they already have come up with, we're seeing, what they're doing, and we're taking their lead. That's another big difference, where, social skills programs kind of impose these ideas and teach the child everything. Children can teach us so much, and we're providing space for that using my program. The other thing is that we're identifying areas. As we're going along, we're identifying areas the child may need support. We can expand on these then after we finish the books. So, we can see, okay, maybe this child actually does have difficulty asking people for help. Maybe this child does have difficulty advocating for themselves. Maybe they find this way of advocating easy, this way, a bit more difficult. Just make those notes and just do that as you're going along. If you are a professional working in this area, or if you're working in education, and you need more support, we have a fantastic course, the Get Connected course, which is a 5-day course. And we will help you work through all of these and come up with really good tailor-made resources, individual for each client that you're working with. So do check that out. The other thing we're doing is, we've already started on self-advocacy with the child. We're already doing that with these little things that we're doing throughout the program. And, that is such a gift for the child, such a gift. And I often say as well, though, it's exhausting to have to advocate for yourself and your needs and explaining yourself all the time to people. Like, that's very, very tiring. And I think that's something we need to be aware of. So a neuro-affirming approach means, okay, you support the child self-advocate, but then you also have to support people around the child, whether it's at home, in family, in school, in whatever setting. You need to support them as well, to be a bit more understanding and to, meet that child with kindness and less judgment, and to learn a little bit more about autistic communication, because that's what a neuro-affirming approach means. The last thing I suppose we wanted to talk about is that you could absolutely use these books with peers, because what we're just figuring out different ways that people communicate. And I suppose when we can use something like that, and we can use it to support any child in their communication, another sign that it's neuro-affirming. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this part. It's part 4. Just to have a little think about that, because there's just so many different programs out there claiming to be all sorts of things that they're not. And it can be really difficult to navigate. Totally understand that. So I hope as we're going through the books that you're also learning, I suppose, what it means to be neuro-affirming, and to support somebody in a truly neuro-affirming way. So thank you so much for listening to me today, and I'll see you in part 5. Thanks. Bye.